this dial knew how well the skillful gardener drew of flowers and herbs this dial knew. So the speaker in this stanza talks about the skill of the gardener, the skill of the creator, yani, and says that the creator actually created the garden, created the trees and the plants in such a manner that serves as a sundial. That serves as a sundial. The gardener, the creator, was very skillful to create the garden and the plants, to create the trees in a manner that serves as a sundial. And I think last time we talked about sundial, right? We talked about sundial, right? Students, are you following or not following?
Yes, we did, Doctor.
Yes, Muhammad.
Yes. What is the meaning of sundial when we say sundial?
I think the shadow cast by the suns to predict the time.
Yes. Okay. So it's the shadow that is cast by the sun on the trees and the plants. Okay, where you can tell the time, where you can tell the time. So the gardener was skillful actually to create the garden, to create the plants and trees in a manner that serves as a sundial, where from above the milder sun, where where from above the milder sun does it through a fragrant zodiac run. So the rays of the sun fall on the garden. The rays of the sun fall on the garden that serves as a sundial, as we have just said, with what? With 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 uh, uh, with diminished heat, actually, with in a mild way, let's say. The rays of the sun fall on the garden that serves as a sundial with diminished heat, in a mild way, not in a hot way. That can be compared to the system of signs, to the signs of the zodiac. Okay. In other words, the garden seems to have its own world, a world that has its own system of signs, a world that seems to have its own system of signs, in which you can tell the time from what? In which you can tell the time from what? From that, from that, from that sundial, from that sundial. So again, the garden seems to have what? Its own world, a world that seems to be different from other worlds, a world that has its own system of signs. It has its own sun, it has its own bees, it has its own trees. And being in the garden, you can tell the time from what? From what? From the sundial, from the sundial. And as it works, the industrious bee, the hard-working bee, and as it works, the industrious bee computes its time, calculates يعني the time, and as it works, the industrious bee computes its time as well as we. So the hardworking bee, can collect, or can, let's say, not collect here. The hardworking bee can calculate the passing time in an accurate way, as we human beings طبعا can, as we human beings can. So the industrious bee, the hardworking bee, can calculate, can tell the passing of time طبعا in an accurate way as human beings can. How? It's through looking at the sundial, right? It's through looking at the sundial. Through looking at the sundial, actually, the industrious bee can tell the time, can tell the passage of time, can tell the passing of hours. You see the point? The passing of time as a human, in an accurate way طبعا, in an accurate way as human beings can. So how will the skillful gardener drew flowers and herbs this dial new, where from above the milder sun does through a fragrant diagram, and as it works the industrious bee computes its time as well as we. How could such sweet and wholesome hours? How could such sweet and wholesome hours be reckoned but with herbs and flowers? The happy hours, the sweet hours that someone can spend in the garden, or that someone spends in the garden, let's say, the sweet hours, the happy hours, the happy time, the happy hours that someone spends in the garden can never be calculated in the garden except by consulting the sundial. Okay, except by consulting the sundial طبعا. The sundial formed by what? Formed by trees. So the sweet, the beautiful, the happy hours that someone spends in the garden can only be calculated through consulting the sundial formed by trees, formed by plants and trees. Yes. Any questions? If you have any questions, students, with regard to this poem? Any questions؟ يعني القصيدة أخذت معنا تقريبا أسبوعين، ما بعرف ليش.